Hi everyone, welcome to Kerala PSC HSA English classes. This is class 15. Today I'm discussing on Obituary, poem written by A.K. Ramanujan. It contains 8 stanzas with 7 lines each. It does not follow a specific rhyme scheme. The poem describes the aftermath of the poet's father's death and all the things he left behind: physical, emotional, everything. There are many useless or meaningless things like dust, old papers, and also some memories and rituals which are going to last for a lifetime. So, what do you mean by obituary? Obituary, it's a notice of death you see on newspapers. So the poem is written on the death of his father. The poet explains how his death has affected his family and what his father has achieved in his life. So his father has left behind a table of papers and debts and daughters. The father also left behind a grandson named after him. So these lines show that the poet is dissatisfied about his father. He is not much sad about his death, and now he is more concerned about the duties he has to do for the family. He has to pay the debts, he has to marry off his sisters, and also take care of the young child. So this shows a typical Indian family, patriarchal family, where the head of the family, the eldest male in the family, will take care of others and do all the duties bestowed upon him. Because no others are earning in the family, mother or sisters. So the readers become so much closer to the speaker's families through these lines because they are so normal and so typical. Next, the poet continues to say what his father has left behind. It is a house that leaned slowly through our growing years on a bent coconut tree in the yard. So it means that the poet has inherited a house which is leaning on a coconut tree. So that means the house is in a very bad condition. Next, we have to take the note of the word burning. It alludes to many things. First of all, it alludes to the practices associated with farming. Next, it tells about the father's, anger, his bad temper. And next, about that the father was burned, or cremated properly. So the poet is not showing any sorrow or any lamentation on the death of his father. And maybe the father have been behaved not properly with him, and other family members because he was very hot tempered. And now he is burned properly at the cremation. So it's just like a tit for a tat. In the third stanza, there is a reference of eye coins, and this is related to the tradition of putting coins on the dead person's eyes when they are buried, or in this case, before they are cremated. So the poet draws our attention to the fact that the coins didn't burn. They were left in the ashes, looking the same as when they left into the fire. And there, alongside with the coins, there were some spinal disc. And the spinal disc were even rough than the coins, because some of them were only some of them were burnt to coal. So after the cremation, the sons, poet and his brothers, they engage in doing the rituals of throwing the bits of bone, facing east where three rivers meet near the railway station. So the ritual happens somewhere normal, right near a railway station. And he goes on to describe how they chose not to have a headstone for their father. They didn't think that his full name and two dates would do him justice. So his father has no grave, as his ashes and remains are thrown in the river. Parenthesis, everything he didn't quite manage to do himself. So here speaker is saying about the father's birth and death. He was born in a Brahmin ghetto and died by heart failure in a fruit market. So here the poet shows that even if his father was a Brahmin, his birth was very ordinary, and even his death could not be controlled by him. So, in spite of being educated, he died in a market of heart failure and he couldn't save himself. So, he has achieved nothing in his whole life. His birth was ordinary, death was ordinary, and what he did in his life was not worthy. He only left behind some debts and daughters of marriageable age and a small child. So there are lot many things to do, and those responsibilities are now on the head of poet. The sixth stanza, there is a connection between the title of the poem and the sixth stanza. Now, the father has left something behind, the two lines inside a column of a Madras newspaper. And the son doesn't know exactly which newspaper or where the lines are. But he did hear that it is sold by the kilo and would turn up with the street hawkers or those on the street selling goods 4 weeks later. So, this shows that the poet is not at all concerned about his father's death. The obituary column telling his father's death, because that particular newspaper will also be sold and used and thrown away by people just like other newspapers. So he is not at all giving importance or value to his father. The sellers use these papers to pack things, the grocery items, to the customers, just like they are very normal things that will happen in our life. So just like the speaker will also go to buy normal everyday products, and usually he buys a newspaper along with spices such as coriander. And now the poet says that he will begin to buy more of these things in hope of finding these obituary lines which were written for his father in the coming years. Because we feel there's a sense of celebration in the mind of the poet. And in the end, he says that his father has left with him a changed mother. That means now the mother is sorrowful. She remains sorrowful forever for her rest of her life. And more than one annual ritual. The poet was not at all ready for the ritual that was done during the cremation. Now, he is showing his dislike for the ritual which will be celebrated in the memory of his father for his peace. So, all he wants to say about his father is that he achieved nothing in this world except those two lines, that obituary lines which were written in the newspaper. He could never find out. And on the other, he left an unbearable burden on the poet, the whole family. And we can say that the poem is hence a critique of poet's father and his incapabilities.